A world war is a conflict so vast and all-encompassing that it draws in multiple great powers from around the globe, often pulling in nations from every continent. These wars are not limited to a single region or a handful of countries. They become battles that span oceans and cross borders, affecting people and places far removed from the original spark. Vast alliances are formed, with countries joining forces based on treaties, shared interests, or even old rivalries. The fighting stretches across continents, involving armies, navies, and air forces in a struggle that seems to have no boundaries. Unlike smaller regional disputes, world wars disrupt the very fabric of global society. Trade routes are blocked, economies falter, and millions are forced to flee their homes, creating waves of refugees and humanitarian crises that touch every corner of the planet. The aftermath of such wars reshapes international relations for generations. New alliances are forged, old empires fall, and the world order is rewritten, often at great human and political cost. Societies and economies are mobilized entirely for war. Factories shift from making consumer goods to producing weapons, and civilians are called upon to support the war effort, whether by rationing, volunteering, or working in critical industries. Daily life is transformed, and the sense of normalcy vanishes. The scars left behind are not just physical, but emotional and psychological. Cities are reduced to rubble, families are torn apart, and entire generations are marked by loss and trauma. The term World War signals a level of total national commitment and catastrophic consequences that few other events in history can match. It means that every resource, every citizen, and every institution is drawn into the conflict. Today, on July 22, 2025, the possibility of a new world war is not just a distant nightmare. It's a real and growing concern, discussed in headlines and debated by leaders around the world. When world leaders warn of World War III, they're talking about a clash between major powers like the United States, China, and Russia. Such a conflict would involve not only massive armies and advanced weaponry, but also the latest in military technology, from cyber attacks to unmanned drones. The battlefields of a modern world war would be both physical and digital, with cyber warfare targeting infrastructure, communications, and even the financial systems that keep nations running. Such a conflict would represent a profound failure of diplomacy and international cooperation, shattering decades of efforts to maintain peace and stability. The consequences could unravel decades of global progress, reversing economic growth, destroying infrastructure, and setting back human development by generations. In the nuclear age, the stakes are higher than ever before. The existence of weapons capable of destroying entire cities in moments means that the risks of escalation are almost unimaginable. A new world war could devastate the global economy, leave cities abandoned, and threaten the very survival of civilization itself. To ask if we're on the brink of World War III is to ask if humanity is standing at the edge of a precipice, peering into an uncertain and potentially catastrophic future. It's a question that demands our full attention, our deepest reflection, and a renewed commitment to peace. To truly grasp today's dangers and uncertainties, we must first understand the lessons that history offers us. Looking back at the world wars of the 20th century, we see how quickly peace can unravel and how devastating the consequences can be when diplomacy fails. World War I began as a regional dispute, but through a web of alliances, rising nationalism, and misjudgments, it escalated into a global catastrophe. Millions perished, and the world was left scarred and forever changed. World War II was even more destructive, engulfing continents in conflict and culminating in the use of atomic weapons, ushering in a new era of warfare and fear. These wars toppled ancient empires, redrew borders, and left behind legacies of bitterness, instability, and unresolved grievances that still echo today. In response, the world came together to create institutions like the United Nations, hoping to prevent such devastation from ever happening again, and to foster dialogue between nations. The key lesson is clear. When tensions simmer, arms races accelerate, and alliances become rigid, the risk of conflict spiraling out of control grows dangerously high. Time and again, leaders have miscalculated, convinced that war would be short and decisive. History shows us they are almost always wrong, and the cost is paid by millions. Today, we witness similar patterns: rivalries between great powers, shifting alliances, and regional conflicts that threaten to draw in larger players, making the world feel increasingly unstable. The echoes of the past are not just distant memories, they are a stark warning, urging us to remain vigilant and learn from what came before. History teaches us that peace is fragile, easily shattered, and must be actively preserved through cooperation, understanding, and constant effort. If we ignore these hard-won lessons, we risk repeating the tragedies of the past, and the cost, as history shows, is always far too high. In 2025, the world faces several dangerous flashpoints involving major powers. India and Pakistan, both nuclear-armed, have reignited conflict over Kashmir, risking catastrophic escalation. The Ukraine war has become a grinding proxy conflict between Russia and the West, with NATO's involvement raising the risk of direct confrontation. A recent survey shows 45% of experts fear a Russia-NATO clash within the next decade. These crises are symptoms of a broader breakdown in global stability and rising great power competition. International institutions like the UN often find themselves paralyzed, making diplomatic solutions elusive. The combination of volatile regional conflicts and overarching rivalries makes the threat of a wider war dangerously real. The world is a powder keg. One spark could ignite a global explosion. The Taiwan issue is perhaps the most dangerous flashpoint for a world war. China views Taiwan as a breakaway province, while the US is committed to helping Taiwan defend itself. Taiwan's strategic importance, especially in semiconductor production, means a conflict would trigger global economic chaos. A recent report found 65% of experts believe China will attempt to retake Taiwan by force within 10 years. Any war here would likely draw in the US, Japan, and Australia, making it the definition of a third world war. As both sides build up their militaries, the risk of miscalculation grows. Even a small incident could spiral into a catastrophic conflict. The Taiwan standoff is a classic security dilemma. Each move to increase security only raises the risk of war. The Ukraine war is the largest European conflict since 1945, deepening the divide between Russia and the West. Severe sanctions have pushed Russia toward China and Iran, accelerating the formation of rival global blocs. NATO's support for Ukraine increases the risk of miscalculation and direct confrontation with Russia. Putin's peace demands show little room for compromise, suggesting a prolonged and draining conflict. Europe is rapidly rearming, with Sweden and Finland joining NATO and the alliance bolstering its eastern flank. This militarization makes the continent more volatile and distrustful. The Iron Curtain may be gone, but a new armed divide has descended on Europe. The region remains a potential trigger for a wider war. The nuclear threat, once a relic of the Cold War, has returned with alarming force. Leaders now make open or veiled nuclear threats, lowering the threshold for use. Nearly half of global strategists expect nuclear weapons to be used by 2035, with Russia and North Korea seen as the most likely actors. Nuclear proliferation is accelerating, with Iran, South Korea, and Japan possibly joining the nuclear club. More nuclear-armed states mean greater risks of miscalculation, theft, or extremist use. Modern conflict increases the temptation to use tactical nuclear weapons in desperation. The doctrine of escalate to de-escalate is a dangerous gamble. The return of the nuclear threat is the most terrifying aspect of today's instability. Humanity still holds the means of its own destruction. The next world war may be fought as much in cyberspace as on battlefields. Hybrid warfare blends military action with cyber attacks, disinformation, and economic sabotage. Attacks on critical infrastructure like undersea cables can cripple economies and communications. Artificial intelligence is revolutionizing warfare, enabling autonomous drones and deep-fake propaganda. Wars could escalate at machine speed, outpacing human control. Attribution is difficult. Retaliating against cyber attacks is risky when the attacker is unclear. Nations are racing to develop these new weapons, creating a digital arms race. The consequences of cyber and AI warfare are as real as any bomb or missile. The world is shifting from US dominance to a multipolar order with several centers of power. New alliances are forming, with blocs coalescing around the US and China, and a possible coalition of China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea. International institutions are weakened by rivalry, making cooperation harder. Global anxiety is rising, fueled by both real tensions and prophecies of conflict. Figures like Baba Vanga and Otto Salome have predicted major wars, reflecting public fear and uncertainty. This anxiety can drive nationalism and aggression, further fueling the cycle of conflict. The loss of faith in institutions makes societies more vulnerable to instability. Fear itself can become a catalyst for war. On July 22, 2025, we find ourselves standing at a crossroads, facing a world more dangerous and unpredictable than at any time in recent memory. The stakes have never felt higher, and the choices we make now will echo for generations. Great power competition intensifies, regional flashpoints simmer, and the ever-present nuclear threat looms larger than before, creating a volatile and fragile security environment. The balance of power is shifting, and the risks of miscalculation are growing. The old international order is fraying at the edges, replaced by shifting alliances, deep mistrust, and a sense of uncertainty that permeates global affairs. Long-standing agreements are being tested, and the rules that once kept peace are now in question. Meanwhile, new technologies like artificial intelligence, cyber weapons, and autonomous systems introduce unprecedented risks. These tools can empower progress, but in the wrong hands, they threaten to destabilize entire societies in ways we are only beginning to understand. The warnings from experts, the anxiety felt by the public, and the calls for action are all rational responses to this growing instability. People everywhere are searching for answers, hoping for reassurance in a world that feels increasingly uncertain. Recognizing these dangers is the crucial first step to preventing catastrophe. Awareness allows us to prepare, to adapt, and to seek out solutions before it's too late. We must learn from the lessons of history, focus diplomatic efforts on the world's most dangerous flashpoints, and create new norms and agreements for emerging technologies that are rapidly changing the landscape. The path away from the brink demands renewed diplomacy, stronger international institutions, and the active engagement of citizens everywhere. Only together can we build resilience and foster trust. The future remains unwritten. These warnings are not predictions of doom, but a call to action. We have the power to shape what comes next, if we act with courage and vision. In the end, we must choose cooperation over conflict, unity over division, to secure a peaceful and prosperous world for future generations. The choice is ours to make.